When you were saying that, talking about the next generation, I'm sorry. I was thinking about my daughter. Because,
Yeah.
I'm teaching her hella shit that my parents didn't teach me. And then the clients that I'm working with, I'm like, you're in a tough position because you're the one who's breaking this generational cycle. It's not going to end with you, but what you teach to your daughter or whoever's coming after you, because of what you've learned, it's going to be natural for them.
Yeah. I had this conversation with a mom friend the other day, and I was like, it is sometimes like whiplash to like break the generational curse. And you just learned it. Learned it. You're just barely integrating the lesson. And then you get to, but you kind of have to, because you know better, you got to do better. You got to turn around right away and practice it. So like just the turnaround is so quick, I'm like, can I sit with this for a little bit? And it's like, no, I really can't, because I have this little one in front of me who is, that I get to speak life into. And so because I know better, I got to do better. But man, it is like you learn it, and then 2 minutes later, you're already implementing it and teaching it to the next generation. And it's like, oh, I'm tired.
Yeah.
What's up, Capwatids? We're back.
It's your favorite Ates, and welcome to season 4.
For those just tuning in, we are two Filipinx soul sisters on a decolonizing journey, currently based on Turtle Island, aka North America.
We met each other again this lifetime in a healing circle, and that's how the Babaylanbruha Book Club podcast was born.
This season, we did something a little different by engaging in a series of study break conversations with honored artists, authors, and thought leaders in the Filipinx diaspora.
We enjoyed connecting with Kapwa with different perspectives and viewpoints, and we're so excited to extend these conversations to you.
In this conversation, we sit down with Manang Lauren, licensed marriage family therapist, and her range of personal and professional knowledge.
Lauren is a healer, an intergenerational mental health cycle breaker, an advocate, and a fitness coach. Let's get into this nourishing conversation. Okay.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Study Break. We have the prestigious Manang Lauren with us today. And before we dive in, we just kind of want to get grounded, take a quick little few deep breaths. So I invite y'all, if you want to participate, just if it's safe to, close your eyes and just connect back into your body. And just connect back to your breath. Can you hear yourself breathing? Let's take an inhale together. Inhale, push your belly button out. And then when you breathe in, push your belly button in. Or breathe out, push your belly button in. Let's do that one more time together. And then out again. You're welcome to breathe now on your own. And I just invite you to come back into your body, into this space. You don't need to worry about what happened today, what's going to happen next. Can you just be present here and feel into how it feels to be here and to let go? And as always, I always acknowledge the ancestors of the lands we reside on. For me, that's the Miwok Yokuts, and for her, that's the mound builders of the Shani, Wyandotte. What else, sis?
Shani, Miami, Wyandotte, and the mound builders that are the Hopewell and the
Adena peoples. You can also chime in with the peoples that the land you're on too. Any other intentions? And as you come back here, you can open your eyes now. Thank you for participating in some breath work. And here we are with Manang Lauren. Ate Amy, and Ate Steph. And we'd love to open it up. Introduce yourself. Manang, what do you do? Have done? Tell the peoples about yourself.
I'm guessing, can you hear me? I'm guessing that I was invited based off of my Instagram because that's where I know most of you. So my name is Lauren Torres Funiestas. I am also from the unceded territory, not from, but I'm currently living on the unceded territory of the Miwok tribes. I'm also known as Benicia, California, the 707 in the Bay. I am currently, my identity is one part mother. So when you said let go of things, I was actually imagining letting go of my family that's upstairs. I didn't want to do that. Actually, I'm in a place where I really want to hang out with them. And I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. I own a what I like to call a boutique private practice here in the Bay Area. I serve primarily Asian American, Filipina, and Pacific Islander women. And I am also a clinical supervisor for Asian perinatal advocates, family support services in the city. A little bit about the agency. I'm new to the agency, but it's awesome so far because I have decentered white men in my career. I am surrounded by Asian women, so it's beautiful. And we provide services specifically for San Francisco residents living in Visitation Valley of San Francisco, which has just been named a Pacific Island Heritage cultural neighborhood of the city. There's a lot of API, Chinese American. It's a very diverse community by the Cal Palace. And we provide services at 5 different schools. So I train clinicians on providing school-based counseling in that neighborhood. And I train them how to do therapy with adults. And so the community that we service primarily bilingual immigrants. And so there's a lot of issues that go on with trying to have that population access American mental health. And so I'm teaching them a lot about systems work right now. And yeah, that's my identity. That's what I spend most of my time when if I'm not with my family, that's what I spend my time doing. And it might sound like a lot, but I am here to do it. And so it doesn't feel like a burden or anything like that. Actually, it's pretty aligned. And yeah, I've been in mental health for 20 years. I used to actually work in the jails. So working in the jails, from working in the jails to now working from home, it's a beautiful transition. I learned a lot. And yeah, I guess we can start from there.
Wow, 20 years.
Yeah. I look like I'm 28, huh?
No, you don't. You look like you're 20.
Yeah.
It's no raisin. You know,
I get that all the time. I'm like, I'm almost 40. Can you believe?
Oh, so you were 20 in the jail system doing.
You were doing mental health work with the inmates. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah. So my bachelor's is actually in criminal justice. I wanted to be a lawyer. Okay. So I did the whole was in political science, went to criminal justice, took the LSAT, failed the LSAT, didn't get very far. And then I was like, well, what am I going to do with my life? And I ended up going into counseling because of the work I was doing. So I would go into the San Francisco County Jail and I would work primarily with the homeless population.
Okay.
My job was to help get them out of jail and into programs so that they could get the treatment that they needed, right? And services that they needed. And I started to realize that a lot of folks I was working with had severe mental illness and I knew nothing about it. So I went back. Yeah, I went back to school so that I could understand more about diagnoses. Because I was working with folks who had severe psychosis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, you are definitely in the community and doing a lot of work. So we appreciate that for sure. So when I first started following you on Instagram, you were Kiona's self-defense. Is that something that I can ask about? I invite you to talk more about that. Like, what was your journey from Kiona's self-defense and now you're like Manang Lauren?
Yeah. So I hated my job. I hated my job in 2022, I realized that I hated that what I was doing, because I went from working a full-time job to then working full-time and overnight shifts and extra work, because my trauma response to the pandemic was to work more.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, I need to show everyone that I'm so essential. And so I started to work more, and it drained me. And so I started to think of a exit plan. And this was around the time everyone was on the internet. So there are a lot of like folks teaching you how to make money on the internet, how to do this, and that. And I got sucked in. And I ended up starting a business because I was like, it was actually the third iteration of the business. So at first I was going to open a baby clothes shop. Clothes shop with all these baby clothes, and then I was going to open up a bike shop because I saw like these little bikes that were hella cute, and I have a daughter, so I was like, oh, I could use her, pimp her out. and then I was like, well, what really matters to me, right? And at the time, I had a friend he was actually my supplier. He is the one I found all my merchandise from, my products from. And he convinced me he's like, you're the perfect person to like promote these type of things. This was around the height. I remember starting the business right when the women in Atlanta they were killed in Atlanta. They were murdered by that man.
Yeah.
And I just remember being at the spa in Atlanta.
Yeah.
I think it was 20.
Oh, you went to that same spa?
No, I opened the business like 2 weeks before that happened. And so there was like this influx of a lot of Asian American women in the Bay Area who are like feeling scared, feeling anxious. And it wasn't my idea to be like, oh, let me capitalize off of this fear. It actually happened before that all happened. But I guess the fear, the whole the violence against Asian American community was really televised and not promoted, but like,
right,
you'd see it every day, right? With the pandemic and whatnot. And so, I just started selling. I would go on my overnight shifts at the jail, and I would like make my website and film stupid shit. And like, I actually shouldn't say that, because I was able to bring in some of my products. So I was sold self-defense products. So tasers, stun guns, not tasers. They wouldn't approve me to sell tasers because I wasn't law enforcement. But yeah, so stun guns, knives, batons. I have batons. That was my favorite one, was batons. Alarms. So I sold a lot of stuff. I was doing it mostly online and on Instagram, which was fun, but it wasn't what I wanted to do with my life. And so I ended up going to pop-ups to see how that would go. And I attended a lot of Asian, like Pacific Islander pop-ups, which was hella fun because like all these brown folks, it's community, like it was like a party and I was making money. But it was a lot of physical labor. And what I found was that when I was at the pop-ups, I would be talking to the women about why I felt they needed this, like for your protection, for your safety. And then from there, I'm a therapist already, so people would just naturally tell me about their lives, and just hearing story after story after story of whatnot, of violence, of assaults. I decided to start my practice. It was also the other attempt to get out of working a government job that I hated.
Yeah.
I was overworking in the jails. I actually almost got attacked in a jail. And that's when I was like, nah, I don't have any more compassion.
Yeah.
I had resisted opening private practice because of my own history, right? Like I hadn't unpacked a lot of my own history. And at this point in my life, I just felt like the natural thing to do. Like I had to step into my role as a therapist and really start working with the people I was supposed to be working with. So I work right now, I have a full private practice of about 18 to 20 clients that I see regularly on top of my full-time job. And
Wait, you have a full-time job and a practice?
Yeah. Your
practice is not your full?
No. And then I have a dog. Yeah, no, it's crazy. But here's the thing, like if I hadn't tried to start that fucking baby, sorry, I don't know if I can cuss.
No,
but if I hadn't,
you can cuss.
If I hadn't like started thinking about an exit plan out of working that particular job, my life is so flexible right now that I can do both at the same time and still be here to do things like this, make time for, right? So, yeah, that's where I am. I focus mostly on, again, like I said, Asian American, Pacific Island, Filipino women, most of whom are working through intergenerational trauma, so a lot of family stuff, folks who have experienced sexual assault, folks who are navigating their identities as women. I work with a lot of like late 20s to early 30s, which I love because that's when your Saturn return is. So they're like shifting from being young adults to actual adults. And I love seeing the progress of like, yeah, set the boundary, like communicate better. Let's talk about what we want in a life. You know, it's a really, I love the age. I love it so much. There's a lot of change that happens during that time in our lives.
Yeah. I love that you're into Saturn returns, you know, the astrology, the cosmos. That's actually one of our things. So do you know your sun, moon, rising?
I mean, I know that I'm a Pisces. I don't know the difference between, I wasn't one to really study it, but I know for sure that I'm a Pisces. Like I everything I read, like I'm wishy-washy, I'm a daydreamer. You can never really count on me. Like I have, like in my late teens to 20s, I was always like, damn, those are such bad traits. You're such a bad friend. But then I was like, as I'm getting towards my 40s, I'm like, that's just the way I am. I'm not hurting nobody.
Yeah.
I'm going to say sorry and I'm going to let you know and I'm going to communicate, but I might not show up when you invite me. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And you know what else about Pisces? They're super deep. They're very intuitive and they are healers. So, you know, there's always the shadow and side to everything, but those things I do see in you as well. Like you're very much a healer. You know, I see the way you show up on the Instagrams and your stuff is very intuitive. So, and I know I really love your vision and, you know, the way that you present therapy. I honestly was like, man, I need somebody like you out here in Ohio who practices out here in Ohio for real. But can you you know, this is the Babaylanbruha podcast. So can you speak more, perhaps a little bit about your spiritual journey and maybe how that informs you as a therapist, like your spiritual journey, your, you know, cultural identity, how that kind of informs how you show up as a therapist?
So I'm currently rearranging my office, but if it wasn't blurred, you would see hella like I got the Babaylan crest right here from the Babaylan book. I've got okay. So
and it's blue too. Hello Pisces.
Yeah.
I consider this. So
like
a friend of mine, I don't know if you know her. I feel like she's an actual Babaylan. Her name is Daphne. So she is like an old college friend of mine, and I go to her to get hilot every now and then, and she calls her room the prayer room. And so this room, I don't pray in here, but it feels like a heart chamber. It feels so insulated because this is where I do my therapy. This is where I meet with my clients and I do my work. And so I really wanted it to feel like I was coming into something sacred. Like, I don't know if you can see, but the light actually looks like a portal around my door.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll turn it off at the end of session. So I guess my spiritual journey and how I am informed as a therapist, well, working in the jails and seeing how folks who meet the criteria for severe mental illness was like the basis of my like social justice training, because shit's hella fucked up. And I decided I didn't want to do law school because it was too hard to get in. At the time, I was like, fuck this. And then I was like, okay, I guess I'll learn about mental health since I'm working about mental health folks. So I went and I found like the one at the time, like the one out of three, or the one out of many schools that I didn't have to take a test to get into. Like some schools you have to take the GRE. I was like, which one do I not have to take a test for? And that was the one I did. And it ended up being one of the first holistic counseling programs that was in California. Like it was literally started by these hippie men who did
Is it
LSD.
CIS?
No. So
Oh,
it's JFK. So I was going to go to CIIS, but it was too expensive.
I know.
I mean, I guess it doesn't matter because the shit that I have to pay off right now is hell expensive.
I know.
Too.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't trade it. Honestly, I had a supervisor ask me if you knew anything different about what your path was, would it be any different? I would say no. Because this holistic program, it went away from your like patriarchal, white-centered. I mean, there were a lot of white men, but it was like you didn't have to take a test. There was not like grades.
Nice.
Like you did the work and then they would grade you on how you showed up. Because like when you're a therapist, and I had one of my clients say this to me, like she said that therapists who have a lot of credentials or certifications tend to be less emotionally available because they're all up in their head. They're all about, and that's what I'm learning as a supervisor. I'm veering away from your question.
That's okay.
Yeah, so I went to school. I chose this school because there was no structure. It felt like, it felt like this free, like holistic, right? It really felt like we did mandalas, we went camping.
Nice.
And yeah, it was cool. It was kind of surreal. It's like you like going to school in a hippie commune and being the only Filipino there. And just like you get it because you come from an indigenous culture. We get it. Like the white people and their food and their land stuff, because we come from the same kind of blood, which is from the earth, but like they had it their own way, like their white American way. And I was like, I dig it. It's kind of weird, but I get it. And then, but the reason why I truly chose it because it left room for me to bring in like Babaylan. Like it led the path for me to find the Babaylan. So while I was in school, 2010, which was a really hard year personally, a best friend of mine passed away, and I got cheated on. It was like the worst. And it was the year that I went to the first international Babaylan conference. So the first one that Tita Lenny held up in Sonoma, and met hella folks there. It was also kind of weird. It was like, oh, now all the hippies are Filipino. Like I wasn't used to it. I wasn't used to the dancing and the singing and the chanting and the art and all. I just wasn't used to hearing all these things. You're used to your Americanized education, and then when you come in and people are like,
that's real.
Yeah, they're like you're doing a dream circle, and they're talking about all these words that you hear. Like I don't speak Tagalog, but like you just feel it, right? I felt it there, and I'm still connected with a few of the folks. I'm a little I have social anxiety I have some social anxiety, so I have issue. I don't know if it's Pisces, right? I tend to go in and out of social groups, so like I'll know a lot of people, but no one will really be like super connected to me. And I prefer it that way. I feel like if I am going to take on a healer role, that it protects me, because all those people I know is so it protects me. But it's nice to like I already feel connected to you. I don't know y'all, like I've never met you, but like I feel like there's a connection, and that's what I kind of hold. And so I went to the conference. I ended up learning about Pahalana, and then I taught that whole concept to my class as a project. I sang, did all this hippie shit. And I was like singing. It was so funny because I was singing Colors of the Wind, and then I sang Lupang Hinirang, and I started crying, and I was like, this is what spirituality is.
Yes.
And I was like I don't know, it was crazy. But it had me seeing things that I previously was like calling hippie shit, right?
Yeah.
And actually I'm feeling it, embodying it, and then seeing other people go through their process, integrating. And so that's where that is.
That's beautiful.
You gotta have some Aquarius in you, because that's Aquarius. Sis is an Aquarius. She got Aquarius. I got Aquarius. I'm Aquarius. That's what Aquarius is do. We're like detached, but we really care a lot.
Yeah. When you were like, I'm in and out of social groups, but no one really, like, I only have a few people who really like.
That's her your moon, right, sis?
My Scorpio moon, probably. That's
No,
my
you're
Scorpio moon.
rising. You're rising. Yeah.
Oh, my Aquarius rising, yeah.
I'm sun, so
But yeah,
yeah.
I love.
We're in the age of Aquarius. So,
We are.
which is
So
like,
your sorry, sis, did I cut you off?
now we're in the age of Aquarius. So everybody's like in developing their inner rebel. Like, why? Do I really have to go with the norm?
How long does that last? How long is that going to last?
Age of Aquarius.
Does that usher us into an age of like, all right, we got what we wanted when we were rebelling, now we're all cool? Because I would like to get there.
Yeah, it does after
I
that.
think it's ending soon. I don't know when though, but we came from the Pisces area, which the healed healer.
Yeah, we went in Pisces and then it's Aquarius. And I think actually after that is Capricorn. And that's when, according to the astrologers, the people who study this, that's when like all the things that we're actually fighting for, that's going to be like the next generation that's actually going to implement all those changes. Like we're here fighting for all that change. And like the generation under us is listening and watching and learning. And then they're going to take up the mantle and just like,
I got goosebumps.
I mean?
You're like, I'm gonna feel like I'm gonna cry.
Yeah, because that's what we call the alpha. They're the alpha.
The alpha generation.
Starting over. Yeah. And this is Western, by the way, when I say it, because I know there's someone out there who's gonna be like, that's Western astrology, but energy don't last.
The stars, yeah.
Yeah, because we are the stars. We are the stars.
When you were saying that, talking about the next generation, I was thinking about my daughter. Because like I'm teaching her hella shit that my parents didn't teach me. And then the clients that I'm working with, I'm like, you're in a tough position because you're the one who's breaking this generational cycle. It's not going to end with you, but what you teach to your daughter or whoever's coming after you, because of what you've learned, it's going to be natural for them.
Yeah. I had this conversation with a mom friend the other day, and I was like, it is sometimes like whiplash to like break the generational curse. And you just learned it. Learned it. You're just barely integrating the lesson. And then you get to, but you kind of have to, because you know better, you got to do better. You got to turn around right away and practice it. So like just the turnaround is so quick, I'm like, can I sit with this for a little bit? And it's like, no, I really can't, because I have this little one in front of me who is, that I get to speak life into. And so because I know better, I got to do better. But man, it is like you learn it, and then 2 minutes later, you're already implementing it and teaching it to the next generation. And it's like, oh, I'm tired.
Yeah.
The
thing that I've seen, or maybe it's just from my experience, is that it's kind of like riding a bike. Like you're scared to get on it because it's like, oh shit, now I have to take the training wheels on. But like when you've learned how to ride a bike, your body never really learns how to forget. Yeah. You could not ride a bike for 20 years and you'd see a bike, hop on it, and it would still know. I think it would know. And so like, it's kind of like we already carried all of these lessons that we were trying to teach. And so once they're awakened in us, and once we are practicing them so much that they're embodied, it's like play. It's not work anymore. Because when I look at my daughter and she's throwing a tantrum, I'm like, that's hella cute. That look cute for throwing that tantrum. Now come over here. It's like, I don't need to yell. I don't need to fight. I know she's doing her thing. Like we have this understanding that every human being's soul is doing their thing when they're rebelling or whatnot, as a mother and a child.
I love that. That is beautiful.
I hope that people can get there, that their trauma. It's kind of sad to say that like you have to somehow turn your trauma into something playful, something not playful and joyful, but like you have to make meaning out of it so that it doesn't pierce your heart every time. Like you have to have understanding of it. Like, I guess what example I could say is like one of the reasons why I really resisted wanting to be a therapist for women who experience sexual assault is because I had experienced sexual assault. Yeah. And I was like, I don't know if I want to talk about that all day with people. But I found that, like, as a therapist now, I don't have to always talk about your trauma. I could talk to you like a homegirl, like we're talking, and it's still therapeutic. You know,
Yeah.
I don't have to be like, oh, where do you feel that in your body? Ooh, that's interesting. Oh, you know, it's like,
Yeah.
bitch, where did you feel that? I know you felt that somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel?
I mean, that is one of my most used questions, though.
I know.
I know you're a therapist. You're training to be a therapist too.
Emerging. I know. I was like, are you gonna be a supervisor when I start?
How are you feeling in your program? Like,
You know,
knowing already what you know.
It's fun to be in a space that is curated by a brown woman. The director is she's Japanese and Hispanic or Latinx, but she understands her white presenting privilege. But but to be in a program where like there are white people, and then to bring the brown perspective, like it's I think the most uncomfortable person in my class is a white boy, like, to be honest. And
I mean, that's their karma.
You know, and I'm like, but I find myself like, am I making him feel uncomfortable on purpose? You know, but it's definitely more, I think, cutting edge. When you're saying they don't do grades and tests and stuff, I hate that shit too. And I think that that's so, like, we would argue like these theories are white people based, like, so. And I love seeing that there's more brown people curating, like, well, what about this theory? Or like, what about this model or framework? It brings in the brown perspective. So, but that's just what brown people do. We always be adjusting, and
because we have to, we had to,
yeah,
and we'll continue to.
Yeah. So, but I start clinicals next month, and that'll be interesting. So,
does that mean you get your first clients?
Yeah. We work with the Vallejo Crisis Center, actually.
Oh, do.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So
I used to run a crisis program in Vallejo. It lasted all of 2 weeks or 2 months, and I was like, nah, saying it either. I've been doing crisis so long that like I said, it's nice to be able to have my own space and do my healing work here and not in.
Word. I wonder how you feel, like, you know, you said early in the beginning, bringing, like, would you say Western or American therapy to the Asian X communities you're working with? Like, I guess, like, what does that look like? I'm just curious.
It looks like parents, about 80% of our clientele are students. So folks who are coming from elementary school, middle school. And, you know, as a therapist, we cannot be your therapist unless your parents gives us consent. Your parents is okay. 12, the age for consent in California is 12 years old. And so when you're dealing with an 8-year-old who has suicidal thoughts and their parents don't believe in mental health, like, what it looks like is, what I'm trying to teach my clinicians right now is working with kids is not just working with the kid. You got to work with the school, you got to work with the family, you got to work with the parents, you got to work, you know, in the systems-based thing, because we're not singular, we're not alone. When we say community or healing happens in community, that's what we mean. And I have to bring that in. Yeah. And it's really about, how can you sell the idea of therapy to a parent? How is this going to support the parent? So I feel like right now there's a movement towards keeping kids because we want to protect our kids. But, like, as a parent myself, I would want to know if my child was somehow, you know, referred to mental health counseling and why, so I could be part of that. Yeah. There is no real mental health concept for Asian communities. Like, that term is not, I don't know if there's a literal term for it, and it's in the system. So I'm working within the mental health system. If we were in the Philippines, they probably wouldn't have the same, like, Medi-Cal insurance hoops that people have to jump through, or language barriers. That's one of our biggest things right now. A lot of our clinicians are English speaking only, but we have Cantonese, Mandarin, Vietnamese, Spanish speaking population. So how do we get them connected? That's one thing that we're looking at right now is, like, how can we encourage our youth or, like, our college students to do this work, because it's much needed. And how can we encourage it from a viewpoint of like, your culture is part of that, you know? Like I speak a lot about like Hilo and what I've learned about Hilo and what I've learned about spirit and how we view life and animism and how everything is connected. All of those things I view, and I bring that in, right? It's not just about your family, it's about everything. And that's such a big concept, but like
exactly. I know they caution a little bit about it in school. So
they do now. But the thing is these immigrant families are coming from a place where they had access to the things that nourish their spirit. Right? Like I don't know if they did. I can't say that actually. I take that back. We don't know. It's changing this world. But at least, you know, you had your food, you had your language, you had your religious practices, you had things that looked like what you grew up in and what your ancestors grew up in. Here, we don't have a lot of that, right? You have your Chinatown, your Filipino town, your Pacific Island heritage, but you don't have the land. You don't have the language in your ear. You have you have all these sterile classrooms where back home people were playing outside in the dirt. I don't know. I remember doing that as a kid. I learned decolonize when I was a 4-year-old. My daughter's 4 now, and you know, I have to think about putting her in school. And so it's really trying to translate that. Like, your child is suffering. How can we help you help your child? And you know, in our tribal cult and tribalness of it, the tribalness of ourselves, we're like, no outsiders, no systems. And you know, our systems do hella bad shit, and so there's a lot of history around that. But how can you come as a person and really support this family, because you can see the trajectory if it continues, behaviors and certain things.
That's beautiful. LMFT, like it's very marriage family systems. So like LMFT almost like honors the village energy of like, you know, this is a unit. How do we work as a unit?
Yes.
So,
The element, and there is a difference, because I also supervise LCSWs or MSWs, and they come from more of like a system. Like, how is this, like, the bigger systems affecting? I don't know. There's less of an interpersonal. Like, I really, like, one of my MSWs, and I had to really teach like the relationship. Like, you know, the basis of your therapeutic relationship is the relationship. You don't like, if your client doesn't like you, it doesn't matter how much you know, because they're not going to want to talk to you. Right?
Therapy's like dating. That's how
it is.
You really gotta like trust that you're right, sis.
Yeah, you do. And then when the time is over, when you feel like it feels difficult to have that conversation as well. So
I mean, I left 3 therapists because I knew they were just weren't. I was like, you are nervous. Like, I know more than you.
You are nervous.
I'm like trying to therapize my therapist. I'm like, are you okay? Is that what I'm telling you? Like,
you know what? I feel that way.
Process?
I know.
Do you?
Yeah, one of mine, I'm just like, it's like I'm talking to a girlfriend that like just asked like, so what does that mean? Like, what did he say? What did they say? And I'm just like, aren't you supposed to like help me like unpack? Like, I don't know.
Like, that's interesting. Do you like the homegirl vibe that she gives you?
No, I don't. It's like I get more substance in this than I would like with her. So I have firing problems, obviously.
Yeah. I don't know. It's hard to find a good therapist.
I know.
That's why I raised my rates.
Yeah.
The value, I'm telling you. Yeah. I actually pay out of pocket for one because I'm exploring EMDR right now. So that's
for yourself or for as a training?
For myself, actually. I would love to implement it. And I know that you do plant-based or plant guided.
So it's not plant guided because I'm not trained. It is cannabis friendly. Okay. So what that means for me is that I'm not going to judge people for their use of cannabis as a healing agent. Yes. And I can provide guidance on how cannabis can affect your mental health and your medication. So I work with folks who are also on medication, and one of the things I do is I help them monitor their symptoms when they're smoking, when they're not smoking. How is it affecting you? And I wouldn't say like, oh, you need to smoke or you don't need to smoke. Like, how is it in your life?
Yeah.
And let's talk about it,
I just have to ask, do they come to sessions high? Like,
I had one girl come and I was like, there's no way you are not high. Cause she had her cell phone like this. And I can't, she might watch this, but I have had people come and I
are
can
you allowed
tell.
to treat them? Like,
Huh?
one of my professors was like, I don't do it if they're high or if they're intoxicated, whatever,
in grad school, it was a big discussion in one of our classes, and everybody was saying the same thing. And I was like, I told them, I was like, I guess it depends, because you don't know how some people function when they're high.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was like, I'm high right now, and I'm like, I know what all y'all are thinking and saying and feeling right now.
Yeah,
but you can't judge.
My intuition
Yeah.
is like heightened, like, and Tita Cannabis, that's what I call her. She's Tita energy to me.
Yeah.
She actually brings out a different like level of, I think, Babaylanic kind of superpower.
Yeah.
Like, you know?
When I went to that Babaylan concert, I made friends with everyone who was a pothead, and we all like snuck away.
Yeah.
Went for a hike and then came back. And I was like, I will say I am a pothead, but I do have a very spiritual relationship with cannabis myself.
Yeah.
So I can understand how people can be turned on and turned off by it, because I've seen both. So I do caution folks, like, I wouldn't say cannabis is for everybody. If you have schizophrenia or a very, very deep traumatic childhood, it really will be a gateway for you to harder drugs. There is some truth to that, because people will start with it, but then the high is not high enough.
Yeah.
So then they graduate to higher highs, which is like heroin or methamphetamine, which is the folks that I used to work with. So I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've seen that transgression or that trend that happen.
Wow.
So I do really caution against, like, I'm afraid of being like cocaine and heroin and all that shit because of what I've seen. I'm like, nah, I would never touch that ever.
I think really the spiritual aspect of it, when you look at it through that lens versus like, oh, it's a fun party thing, there's a different aspect of Tita cannabis that comes out. So I really respect your view on that. Every time I get high, I'm always like, the oracle. I tell my husband, the oracle is here. Do you have questions? And usually it's just, I'm just having fun. It's usually like bullshit answers. But then sometimes I like land on some stuff. He's like, whoa. I'm like, I know. Did you record that? Who got
Girl, sometimes I be recording things when I'm high. And I'm like, I did this whole speech on ADHD. And then I was,
I record stuff all the time too. I told my husband, we'll when we're like 80, we'll make a podcast of all our recordings we've done while we're high.
Revisits. Yeah. I wanted to add that it's not just cannabis. Like a lot of I'm not trained in any of the plant medicine, like mushrooms or any of that. I don't speak like I know a lot of things, but one thing I do know is that there is a high risk for folks. Like I think that people, what you said about party drugs, like, I think that some people mistake those plant medicines as plant medicines to have a good time, when they're really, the real medicine is if you use it as medicine, and there's an intention and there's a ceremony and there's, because there's a lot of things that can go wrong if you're just with somebody who's like, oh, I did ayahuasca yesterday, so now I can show everybody else how to do ayahuasca. Nah, like you have to be able to sit with somebody should something go wrong.
Because I mean, plant medicine, there was a shaman, like there is a spiritual medium that connects you to the spirit of the plant medicine. I think that that's like the bigger conversation. I don't know if we have time to because I could talk about that ever, because plants, like there is a spiritual, even just to like cacao is one of my favorites. I have that like almost every day, and
I just started taking cacao.
It's such a heart opener. So, and it's helped me tremendously with some generational grief and things like that. So and living at home with my parents, like I'm like, ooh, I need my heart open.
I need your heart. Yes. Yes.
But anyway, I think that's the lost part of like the party drug. And I hate when people even call cannabis a drug, because it's not, like, or psilocybin. It's psilocybin's like the new cannabis, honestly.
It is. It actually, that kind of annoys me.
Yeah.
Because I think when you think of plant medicine and you include the integration of ceremony and intention, and like, you know, there's a lot of healing that comes out of it, but if you use it unintentionally and you're already a traumatized person, the wound gets even deeper. Because you, like, your reality, like, not only what it does to your brain mentally and physically, like when you're talking about like you're on when you're high, because you have synapses in your brain that are specifically for cannabis. They only pop off when you smoke it, right? And so if you're now taking other things and popping off other brain synapses and then sitting in front of a TV and watching Alice in Wonderland, what really are you doing for your brain but frying it?
Whoa, what?
Right? So, but if when you're in ceremony, like you're in ceremony with other people, you're in a collective space, and then afterwards you have time for integration to share that space.
Yes.
That's where the healing happens. It's not in the drug, it's in the space, in the community.
Yeah, the plants are they're a vehicle, like, and so it does kind of make me a little sad that, you know, I do hear a lot of positive experiences with psilocybin. I feel like it's part of the hype as well, because this is the thing about cannabis, but then people are like, a lot of people I know are stopping because it heightens their anxiety. And so it's just, I don't know. I feel like that's the bigger conversation about plant medicine in general. Like, how are we approaching it, especially with the younger generations? Like, I think there's a sacredness that is not being honored, and it's disrespectful. I'm just gonna say that. So
it's capitalism.
I was just gonna say that it's capitalism.
That's why we have the microdose. So because you're taking little by little, so you're gonna want to take more and more and more and more. I would listen to a really good podcast that was talking about how capitalism is destroying plant medicine.
I know.
Ceremonies,
yeah, because they got like ayahuasca retreats now in Costa Rica and Brazil, and they're making like retreat getaways because, you know, people want vacations and things like that.
They have them here in California, girl.
So
well, we want to be respectful of your time, Manang Lauren. We have a couple more questions. Are you I
have 8 minutes.
8 minutes?
We have a session at 7.
Okay, well, thank you. Let's see. Since we are talking Babaylan, Bruha things, one of the questions we always ask our guests is like, are there any rituals that you do that you return to daily that either help your spirit or help you in your practice? What do you care to share one of those?
I mean, other than smoking a blunt in the morning, I literally do every day. One thing I have to do, especially on days that I see clients, is I have to do breath work. So what you did this in the beginning of this session, I do that in the middle of sessions or afterwards, because that's how I release all the energy that has gone through me through those sessions. So I have to release some of that. Today I did a Zumba break because I had a really deep session with somebody, and I had to shake it out of me. What else?
That's good. That's beautiful.
Yeah, I have to breathe. One more thing that I do now, because I'm in front of a lot of technology, is I stare off into space. Like I stare off into the distance. To help my eyes readjust to the depths that it naturally needs to be able to see.
Yes.
And I read that like a lot of shamans and healers, that's why they meditate. They would sit on top of mountains and look and find the answers by just staring out. Yeah. So I'm like, I like that feeling of just like not being in front of, like, resetting with nature because I'm in front of technology so much.
Beautiful.
I love that. I love the way like there was a concept called indigenous innovation that we talked about like last season about how, you take these modalities from modern times, but then you tie them back to animism and to, Babaylan and just marry them together to go forward, right? We look back to go forward. And I see that so much in your practice. So thank you so much for being here today and for
Absolutely.
blessing us with your wisdom.
Yes. And
Thank you.
yes, thank you like 10 times over. And let us know or let people know listening in if, I don't know if you're taking in more clients, but how they can find you, follow you.
So I'm less active on social media now because I'm full. However, in my full-time job, I am actually going to be putting together a support group for mothers. So it's a support group for mothers specifically who have children between the ages of 0 to 5. And the reason why that age is, one, because our funding comes from first 5. And then 2, because I really believe that between 0 to 5 is really where you solidify your relationship with your child.
Yeah.
Like everything that you do in those 5 years are very, very, very critical and sets the stage for everything that happens later on in life. And so if we can get our mothers to be well taken care of, to be knowledgeable, to be regulated, and to be aware of their impact, because it's very important to be a mom. I'm not just counting fathers, but like there's something about being inside of another person and having held that I'm not going to let go of. And so I really feel, and especially since my daughter, so I'm doing a support group. It's going to be Mondays starting at the end of January. It will only be for San Francisco residents. We'll be providing childcare, and I'll be providing reimbursement for Clipper, our transportation needs, because that's also part of our agency is how can we break down those barriers for the folks, right? And so the 2 barriers for mothers is money and childcare. So if I can provide that and snacks, of course, if I can provide that, then that's what I'll be doing. And I don't know, I'm not losing any clients, which I think is a good sign. So I don't know if I'll be open, but if you follow me on Instagram at Manang Lauren, I'll be posting if I have any openings from there.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Manang Lauren.
Thank you too.
Care.
All right. Take care.
Have a good night. Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.